Some magic, in A Song of Ice and Fire, seems to be innate to the beings who possess it. Green seers and skin changers are born into the world with their powers, for example. Other types of magic are acquired through study. Melisandre's power seems to come from a deep understanding of the nature of their universe and how to manipulate it in specific ways. Does magic have one source? Some central nexus that branches out feeding all the rest? Or is it more complicated than that? What if what we are referring to as magic is really just a collection of different phenomena that are inherent in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe? They would be akin to forces like gravity or electromagnetism in our own world. They would be natural, not supernatural. If all magic, however, stems from some great nexus, then what is this nexus? A god? Or something unconscious? Something that merely exists and has a specific nature but no true will? If this were true, then it would mean that all magic in A Song of Ice and Fire would ultimately operate on the same basic principles. Each branch of magic needed to be shaped by the consciousness of the practitioner in order to assume a certain form. Melisandre, for example, would shape this force into a kind of fire magic. The weirwood trees seem to have innate power, but assuming this theory is correct, this species at some point must have tapped into this nexus, which changed it. Perhaps this process was guided. We know that the children of the forest used weirwoods to see across great distances, and to create an afterlife for themselves. But could it have always been this way? If we assume that at one point the children didn't have this symbiotic relationship with the weirwoods, then we have to ask ourselves the question, where did the weirwoods come from? Ultimately, if magic all originates from the same source, then that source, at some point in the history of every magical lineage, must have been tapped into. The ancestors of the children of the forest must have tapped into this power, this potential, and later spread it to the weirwoods. So in essence, the weirwood trees were not always magical trees. There may have been something specific about them that made the children choose them, or it may have been by mere chance. The children are intelligent beings. Maybe they created the weirwoods as they are now, so that they themselves could utilize them. No different from the way mankind takes pieces of nature and rearranges them into tools and weapons. But what if magic is not some great nexus, but instead, as I suggested before, a complex interweaving system of unconscious forces? This would make a lot of sense. The magic in A Song of Ice and Fire seems to be nature-based mostly, elemental even. The ice magic of the others, the fire magic of the Red Priest. The children use a kind of earth magic. The weirwoods may draw their power from some unseen force beneath the ground, a force that the children became aware of and honed. In this case, the weirwoods likely evolved normally, but loosely guided by unseen forces that are not present in our own world. For example, something that happened to them over the course of their evolution, a mutation perhaps, may have tuned them into this force, the way a radio tunes into a signal. The weirwood's ability to tap into magic in this case would be a natural ability. The relationship between the children and the weirwoods is symbiotic, like I said before. It would be considered parasitic if one organism benefits while the other did not. The weirwoods benefit by being protected and spread around by the children of the forest. When the children ruled Westeros, the weirwoods covered every inch of it. The goal of every organism is to reproduce. The children benefit because they can use the weirwoods as tools to see and likely communicate across distances, and as vessels that will receive the souls of the children upon death. It also seems that the weirwoods amplify the powers of the green seers. This is evident all over the place. Interestingly enough, Bran eats a bowl of what the children claim to be weirwood paste in order to fully activate his green seer ability. Each weirwood is linked. Whether or not this link is physical is debatable. If all weirwoods were in fact linked physically, it would explain why the Aarons were never able to grow a weirwood in the Eyrie. But there are some things to suggest that the Weirwood Net is connected in some way to all of nature. When Varamir dies by the weirwood, his soul goes into the tree, and then into everything. The white world turned and fell away. For a moment, it was as if he were inside the weirwood, gazing out through carved red eyes as a dying man twitched feebly on the ground and a mad woman danced blindly and bloody underneath the moon, weeping red tears and ripping at her clothes. Then both were gone, and he was rising, melting, his spirit borne on some cold wind. He was in the snow and in the clouds. He was a sparrow, a squirrel, an oak. A horned owl flew silently between his trees, hunting a hare. Varamir was inside the owl, inside the hare, inside the trees. Deep below the frozen ground, earthworms burrowed blindly in the dark, and he was them as well. I am the wood, and everything that's in it, he thought, exulting. 100 ravens took to the air, cawing as they felt him pass. A great elk trumpeted, unsettling the children clinging to his back. A sleeping direwolf raised his head to snarl at empty air. This, in several ways, seems similar to what Bloodraven showed Bran in A Game of Thrones. Bran flies through the air, viewing everything in the world. Is what Varamir and Bran are experiencing here the true Weirwood Net? A connection to all of nature? This connects perfectly to Leif's explanation of what happened to the children of the forest. Gone down into the earth, she answered. Into the stones, into the trees. This idea hints at the fact that all nature is indeed connected by some force. Perhaps a fragmented or multifaceted one, or many different forces converging in one place. Perhaps that is what we are calling the Weirwood Net. Such a net, if it did in fact exist, wouldn't just belong to the weirwoods or the children, but to everything in existence. In conclusion, whether magic is several different forces that converge, becoming the Weirwood Net, or a singular nexus, conscious or not so, is inconclusive. There is evidence to support both hypotheses, and of course, both of these ideas could be incorrect. These theories are based upon speculation and vague clues, but what is clear is that George R. Martin is in fact laying real clues, some of which may be red herrings, and some of which may point towards the truth, glimpses into the hidden operations of the A Song of Ice and Fire universe.